Ever wondered why Sweden, a small country way up in the north, has so many renowned companies? Ever wondered why Swedish inventions are found all over the world? A historically strong industrial sector and innovative companies that aim for the global market from day one are surely a large part of the explanation. But that's not the whole picture. For decades, the Swedish export credit system has been helping to make Swedish companies internationally competitive. Two Swedish government-backed organizations are working side by side to facilitate Swedish exports. The Swedish Export Credit Agency, EKN, offers AAA-rated guarantees for payments, while the Swedish Export Credit Corporation, SEK, provides attractive financial solutions. As a result, you might be entitled to a competitive financing package if your company chooses to buy Swedish products or services. Today, a new generation of Swedish companies are ready to break through into the global market. Digital services, smart cities, green technology, sustainability, and gaming are just some of the new areas of expertise flourishing within Swedish companies. EKN and SEK are ready to support them with our combined offer. This offer is available to you too.
Good afternoon from the Philippines and good morning to everyone calling in from Sweden and from other parts of the world. My name is Tina Del Rosario and I work with Business Sweden in Manila, and I will be your host or MC for today. On behalf of my colleagues in Team Sweden, I welcome you all to the Construction Summit for Southeast Asia in 2021. Even with the effects of the pandemic, this region is still considered to be one of the most dynamic in the world, and perhaps even more so in the short term, with many countries announcing plans to directly ramp up infrastructure and construction investment. This makes our gathering today all the more important. The EPC Alliance by Sweden is a network composed of Team Sweden, global EPCs, Swedish suppliers, and international banks, all working to promote trade and investment between Sweden and the rest of the world, especially in the area of infrastructure. This summit brings together all these stakeholders today, as well as key players in Southeast Asia, including local project owners, construction companies, and industry associations. I'd like to add that we have a very good and diverse representation of Southeast Asian countries today, with delegates and or attendees from Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Our summit has an agenda designed specifically to foster knowledge sharing, collaboration, and relationship building. And this includes an introduction of Swedish solutions and services relevant to the industry. And we will also hear diverse perspectives on construction in Southeast Asia, benefiting from the experiences and insights of technology and service providers working in the region, local construction companies, project financiers. Of course, perhaps the most important part of our event today are the B2B meetings that will be held later this afternoon. If you have signed up for this, we'd like to remind you to make sure that you're logged in and that you have booked and approved meeting requests through the EPC Alliance platform. Instructions and links have been sent out previously, but we will also be showing you a couple of reminder videos through the rest of the afternoon. And now to formally kick off our event today, let us listen to opening messages from His Excellency Dag Julin Danfelt, Deputy Director General and Head of Department for Trade Promotion, Nation Branding, and CSR of the Swedish Ministry for Foreign Affairs. And we will also hear from Her Excellency Marina Berry, Ambassador of Sweden to Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and ASEAN.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dag Julin Danfelt. I'm heading the Department for Trade Promotion, Investment Promotion and Corporate Sustainability at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sweden. I'm very happy and excited to welcome you to this construction summit on behalf of Team Sweden. Team Sweden is a cooperation between different authorities and agencies that includes the Swedish Export Credit Guarantee Board, EKN, the Swedish Trade and Invest Council, also known as Business Sweden, Swedfund and SEK, the Swedish Export Credit Corporation, who of course are all supported by the Swedish government. Sweden is a country with many innovative and world-leading companies that we are extremely proud on. And these companies for sure can contribute with sustainable solutions in large infrastructure projects. To participate in an international EPC is a priority for Swedish companies, eager to bring value-added solutions and innovation in engineering, construction, and infrastructure. Combining the EPC's local implementation capabilities with the Swedish company's innovation and world-class solutions paired with Swedish export financing is indeed a very strong offering. We are expanding our infrastructure rapidly in Sweden and welcome more international EPCs with their specific expertise to the Swedish market. The EPC Alliance by Sweden is a collaboration between us at Team Sweden, international EPCs, Swedish suppliers, and international banks that all work together to win and deliver infrastructure projects globally. This is why the Swedish government has highlighted the importance of international EPCs in its export and investment strategy. It is crucial for us to work with international EPCs, both on the export side, but also on the investment side, to create win-win-win scenarios. Therefore, the EPC Alliance by Sweden is an initiative directed towards international turnkey contractors to both be introduced to the very competitive and AAA rated Swedish export credit system, export financing system, and also to our world-class suppliers, big, extremely efficient and sustainable companies. We promote sustainable infrastructure and have a special emphasis on green projects that address the challenges of climate change and loss of biodiversity, increasingly global challenges that we all have to face and adapt to. We believe that together we can build a more sustainable future. The Asia region is very important for Swedish suppliers, with many major international infrastructure projects going on. Many EPCs from this region are active globally, and we are, through this EPC Alliance, calling for a strategic partnership. Southeast Asia is a diverse, fast-growing region and home to over 600 million people. To maintain and accelerate growth in Southeast Asia, projects to improve the infrastructure stock in the region are being undertaken on a large scale. The Swedish ecosystem can support these projects through innovative, high-quality technology and financing solutions. Around 300 Swedish companies are already established in the region, and in recent years, Southeast Asian investments in Sweden have begun to grow substantially. Southeast Asia is a region that I know quite well, as I had the honor of serving as Sweden's ambassador to Malaysia for 5 years, during which time I did indeed travel to most countries in the region, and also had the opportunity to enjoy the great hospitality offered by Southeast Asian peoples. No doubt, Southeast Asia is not only an extremely beautiful part of the world, but also home to a dynamic commercial sector with dynamic economic development, with ambitious plans to develop and upgrade a sustainable and modern infrastructure, ready to face the sustainability challenges that are prevailing in the region, considering the challenges of climate change and loss of biodiversity. So, dear friend, once again, Team Sweden wishes you all a warm welcome to this construction summit, and I wish you fruitful discussions and meetings throughout the day, and look forward to see you in Sweden.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and friends. It gives also me a great honor to welcome you all to this construction summit. My name is Marina Berg, and I'm the Swedish ambassador to Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and ASEAN. Dear friends, with the COVID-19 pandemic, the world has experienced one of the largest economic and societal disruptions. It has exposed weaknesses and vulnerabilities in virtually all countries and sectors. With the measures taken in most countries, together with vaccine rollouts, there are, however, reasons to be optimistic about a speedy recovery, and not least in Southeast Asia. The region's economic growth, if restored to pre-pandemic levels, it is projected to be in combined GDP to be the fourth largest economy in the world by 2030. In this recovery, we need to safeguard and also strengthen global cooperation, learn from the past, do the risk assessments, and rebuild the economy inclusive and sustainable. We need to work together. Already in 2006, an acute threat of a pandemic was actually foreseen in the World Economic Forum's annual report. Apart from the climate crisis, this year's report from the World Economic Forum expands into new dimensions of risks, to consequences of digital inequalities and cybersecurity failure. Having this in mind, I would like to highlight 3 areas on how ASEAN can restore its economy in the world by 2030, and how Swedish companies and their solutions can contribute. First of all, there is an awareness that increased cooperation in all sectors within ASEAN is instrumental. Even though effective cooperation among ASEAN member states has been the fundamental principle of the community since its inception, the region and its countries still need to work towards an even deeper integration. Something that would contribute towards this end would be increased public-private partnerships, especially in responding to future public health emergencies and to address regional issues such as infrastructure, financing, and skills gaps. Secondly, a survey conducted by, once again, the World Economic Forum with more than 60,000 respondents revealed that ASEAN youths adjusted to COVID-19 environment by significantly increasing their digital footprint. As much as 87% of young people increased their usage of at least one digital tool during the pandemic. Also, a significant majority of young people confirmed their intention to permanently use digital tools beyond the pandemic. To support this trend, ASEAN has moved forward in a plan to promote smart manufacturing and guidelines for the 5G ecosystem, as well as developing a consolidated strategy on the 4th industrial revolution. Such a shift, coupled with adequate investments in digital infrastructure quality and digital skills, will enable entrepreneurship to thrive. And thirdly, and finally, ASEAN and its countries must aim to caution the economic impact of the pandemic and to increase incentives for environmental friendly investments. Sustainability is listed as one of the 5 key strategies for the community's recovery. Advanced technology enables wider adoption, of course, of clean and renewable energy, combined with accelerated changes in policies, trade regulations, and consumer demands. And to this end, ASEAN and its countries need to collaborate with its partners development agencies, but most importantly, with the private sector, in order to support the region's investments in a clean and sustainable future. There is no doubt that in all these endeavors, Sweden and the EPC Alliance can play a strategic role. We now know how, and we know that the time has come to enhanced collaboration among countries, governments, scientists, communities, and the private sector. And that will make us stronger and more resilient for future global risks. We should use this day, and I hope you will do, to unlock the potentials of increased cooperation and technology investments in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. Next up, we have Hans-Olof Raumann of Business Sweden, Kjell Forsberg of EKN, and Per Åkerlund of SEK, who will provide a more in-depth overview of the Team Sweden EPC program and Sweden's export financing solutions. I'd like to remind everyone dialed in that if you have any questions, please go directly to the YouTube page, make sure you're logged into your accounts, and put them in the chat box. We will try to answer as many questions as we can in the latter part of the program.
Thank you, Tina. Team Sweden would also like to welcome you to the Construction Summit for Southeast Asia. My name is Hans-Olof Raumann. I'm Senior Advisor and Program Manager at Business Sweden, and I have two colleagues with me.
Yes, and my name is Kjell Forsberg. I'm a Deputy Director for Large Corporates and responsible for Strategic Relations and Business Development at the Swedish Export Credit Agency, EKN. I'm Per.
And my name is Per Åkerlund. I'm Deputy CEO at Swedish Export Credit Corporation, responsible for strategic partnership and relations.
And who are we at Team Sweden? We are going to present a little bit about us and what we're doing together here. If we start with Business Sweden, we are the Swedish Trade and Promotion Agency. Our mission is to help Swedish companies grow their global sales and international companies to invest in Sweden. We have offices around the world, 40 offices, around 400 people globally. EKN.
Yes, and EKN, we are the Swedish Export Credit Agency, a government agency founded in 1933, and we provide the AAA-rated sovereign guarantees from the Swedish government to the projects. And Per?
And Swedish Export Credit Corporation, SEK, is the bank within the Team Sweden Corporation. We provide the funding for the projects. And we are 100% owned by the Swedish government, and we are a limited company. Then the fourth member of the corporation is Swedfund, the Swedish Development Finance Institution. And they provide the base for the projects. They are working pre-project. And they have one tool where they, through a grant, can finance feasibility studies to make this base to build the project on. Then the program stakeholders as such are, first of all, the global EPCs. They are the ones that are building the project. They are the main contractor. Then we have the Swedish supplier network providing content into the projects. And they can do that individually, or there can be a subcontractor with one contract with the global EPC. Then we have international banks. And why do we have international banks? Well, they are very important in order to be able to structure the whole financing, structure the project so that it is bankable. So we always use an international bank in all projects that we finance. And then finally on top of that, we have the Team Sweden Corporation providing the financing and the Swedish supplier contacts in the projects. And what are then the benefits and for the stakeholders, Kjell?
Well, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, it's really the strong industry base that we have in Sweden, the fantastic Swedish companies that we have that really provides the value to the projects. Then we also have the AAA rated export credit system, and it's one of few in the world that has a AAA rating that can provide the financing for these type of projects. And the third element is really the support from the government and the embassies around the world in the different projects. So I think the value proposition is really centered around these three components. And we're really looking forward to working more like a partnership. So we have a partnership approach where we want to work with international EPCs that have an edge in sustainability and ability to deliver turnkey projects, and also can source from Swedish companies and Swedish interest. But it's also a benefit for the Swedish companies because they also get access to the international EPCs, and that will also trigger new business opportunities for the Swedish companies. But it's really a partnership approach that we have around this, because that's the way we think we're going to build the most sustainable projects that we have. But in order to do this, we need a good industry base. So the Swedish companies, Hans.
Yeah, but as Kjell was explaining, we have a very strong base of Swedish supplier here. And we have divided in three sectors: the transport, power, and special construction focus areas. If we start with the transportation areas, we can finance projects around railway, with rolling stocks, and also the signaling. And then bus rapid transit, we will have some examples. I will tell you a little bit more about what we have done. Airports, we have done quite a lot of airports around the world, and also with air traffic management and those kind of things. Power, obviously that is a home turf for Swedish suppliers. Renewable energy and all the electrification around that. Transmission, distribution, substation, including then power quality solutions here. And then finally then special construction, and that is a little bit of different kind of things like bridges, roads, tunneling projects. We have done hospitals, and we're doing hospitals, and we have a lot of good medical equipment supplier in Sweden. And then finally agriculture and water management systems we can provide Swedish suppliers. On top of that, we have these engineering service providers like the Sweco, the AFRI, that can provide both studies in different forms, engineering services, but also they can take a role as an owner's engineer or project engineer in the project. Everything can be financed that in one package. So that is the Swedish supplier base, you can say so. Kjell, do you want to talk a little bit more about the pipeline that we have here? So.
Well, absolutely. But first and foremost, I'm thrilled that we've been able to close 7 projects since we started this in 2019 to a value of around 1.5 billion euros. But we also built a pipeline of more than 30 projects to a value around 9 billion euros. And we are in the finalization of at least 5 of these. So hopefully we will double the 1.5 billion euro in closed transactions within short. So I'm really thrilled about the pipeline that we built in this sector. But Per, sustainability in these projects.
Absolutely, but first I have to say that that's a commitment. 5 projects from Kjell, that's a commitment. That's very good. Yes, we put a lot of effort into sustainability in the projects that we finance. Being governmental agencies and corporations, it is obviously very, very central. And our benchmark is the IFC performance standards, which assess the environmental impact, it assesses the human and labor rights. We combat all kind of tax evasion, and we do not tolerate any corruption whatsoever, and that includes money laundering. And one example of a project where we did a tremendous effort in lifting the sustainability was a railway project in Tanzania, which is a relatively large project consisting of 5 phases, where we financed the two first phases together with in cooperation with the Danes and with the Swiss. And when we entered the project, it had already started at domestic regulation. And that is not at all at the level where the IFC performance standards is. So we spent more than 12 months in restructuring the whole transaction so that it fulfilled the requirement in the IFC performance standards. And that meant a lot of effort in environmental impacts and for human rights by finding people and giving them replacement housing. Because obviously they had to move where the railroad was built. And the project that we financed was between Dar es Salaam and the Victoria Lake. And it is a high-speed train connecting the coast with that lake. And we are very, very proud of the achievement in that project. And then Hans mentioned hospital projects, so Kjell?
Absolutely. So I think we've also done a few hospital projects, and in this particular case, it's a renovation of an existing hospital, and it's also a construction of a new hospital. And I think this is a good example of how Swedish sourcing can actually come into play, both in the construction phase, but also when you equip the hospitals. So we are providing financing for this project, both in the construction phase, but also in the later phases when you're going to equip the different hospitals. So that's definitely something that we can do and are doing in the sort of special projects area. And then another interesting project that I personally like quite a lot, and that's the BRT system in Ivory Coast. And it's not primarily because of the rolling stock in the buses, it's because of the approach that we took to the whole project, where we used and worked with the project accelerator from Swedfund, providing then grants to do the feasibility studies, and the feasibility studies led to that the World Bank could come in and fund other parts of the project, primarily related to the infrastructure, but also where the export credit facility could be used for the rolling stock, as well as the ticketing systems and other systems and infrastructure related parts of the project. And really, for me, the next phase is also turning this into a waste to energy project, where you can also use the biofuels to fuel the buses at the next phase. But it's a really good showcase project where we used all the tools in our toolbox. But then we've also done more in West Africa.
Yeah, this is a completely different type of project. It's a road project. It is 120 kilometer of sandy and potholed road that needed uplifting, and we financed then to make it into an asphalt road here with flyovers, and we had a lot of machinery there, but also the material for actually building the flyovers. So that is a good way of where we can improve the infrastructure here, the public safety and public health here. So that is really another interesting project that we have done. A lot of the construction equipment was obviously here with coming in here, and then we're having steel bridges. We have a lot of steel manufacturing in Sweden, as you probably know. So,
and that could be fossil free tomorrow. The steel.
Absolutely, we have hybrid there. So.
Absolutely.
And then finally, the last project here. We had done a solar project also in Africa, in Angola. It's 370 megawatts, so it's pretty big. It's 7 sites. And here we have actually replaced then diesel generators that you have that is very dirty, very expensive to run, and very unreliable. So now also we have people that actually get access to electricity. So it's a really good sustainable project. And the Swedish supply here was not the solar panels. That came from Korea. We had the electrification done by Hitachi Energy. And then Elof Hansson coordinated a big bunch of other Swedish supply here. So it was actually quite a good cooperation here going forward. Very good sustainable project. We talked a little bit about Swedfund, and Per mentioned it in the beginning. It's our sister organization. We have used it in one of the projects that we have as a reference case for the BRT. They have a tool called Project Accelerator. They can give us a grant to the project owner funds for doing studies, and that basically they will do in agreement with the project owner a study, and they appoint a consultant together that will do the study, and the result of the study will be the ownership of the project owner. So you do it for the project owner, and then these kind of studies need to be catalytic for the project, so it make them bankable and make them happening, so to say. And what we're doing here is, first of all, in countries that is on the DAC list. If you're familiar with the DAC list, this column 1 and 3, you can Google it. And even for countries in column 4 for climate project. And it's only for public entities, it's not for private entities that we should highlighting here. And the key criteria is obviously potential for impact on sustainability, and then development of projects here. And it should be catalytic, as I said, this sort of like make it happening here, like we had in Ivory Coast. So this is a good tool that we can use in the Swedish toolbox. With that, we would like to thank you from our side. We hope that you will enjoy this event, and looking forward to meet with you later on. If you want to have meeting with us, book it. You can also post questions that we will answer later on in a Q&A session. We think it's a very good opportunity also to meet partnerships. Swedish companies hook up with the local EPCs, or EPCs hook up with the Swedish companies or banks. And we are available also as a resource. Thank you very much, and over to Tina here in the Philippines.
Thank you, Hans Olof, Per, and Shell. Team Sweden is, of course, here in the summit to support you in the audience. So just a reminder to everyone that if you have any questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat box, and we'll try to address them later. Alternatively, as mentioned earlier, Hans Olof, Shell, and Per, as well as other representatives from Business Sweden, SEK, and EKN are here today, and they will be available for B2B sessions later. So if you prefer to have a more in-depth discussion, please feel free to book meetings with them. And yes, now that we know more about the Swedish, the EPC program, as well as Sweden's export financing solutions, perhaps it's time for us to take a closer look at the construction and infrastructure solutions and services that Sweden has to offer. So as a country, Sweden is definitely well known for its history and efforts to promote innovation. In fact, it's ranked second in the Global Innovation Index, right up there with Switzerland and the United States. And when you combine this with a strong commitment to sustainability, what you really get is a high degree of technological sophistication, which lends itself very well to products and solutions for all industries and applications. And of course, since we are at the Construction Summit today, we like to highlight that Swedish companies are world leaders in transport, power, and special construction. And this is all linked to a smart industry strategy from the Swedish government that recognizes the need for Sweden to support the transition to a green, resource-efficient, and innovative economy, not just in Sweden, but also in the rest of the world. And today, we'd like to introduce you to the members of the EPC Alliance in Southeast Asia. And these are all companies who are very well recognized in their fields for their innovation and the high quality of their products and services. And I will be taking you through a quick introduction of their products and offerings today. We have Volvo, Hitachi Energy, Elof Hansson, Dynapac, Hexicon, and NKT. First up, we have the Volvo Group, which is a Swedish multinational company with core businesses in trucks, buses, construction equipment, and marine and industrial drive systems. Their work in transportation has, of course, made them a household name. For the kind of industrial side of things, we have Volvo Buses, which is a pioneering manufacturer of buses, coaches, and chassis with offerings that can meet the unique needs of different markets. And what they really want to offer is a premium and safe experience every time. For the industrial, freight, and logistics sides of things, Volvo Trucks is one of the largest medium to heavy-duty truck brands in the world, and I believe over 95% of their trucks are over 16 tons. Next, we have Volvo Construction Equipment, which has a large range of premium equipment, including wheel loaders, excavators, and articulated haulers. And finally, Volvo Penta is a world-leading supplier of power solutions on land and at sea with engines for multiple applications. Our second company is Hitachi Energy, a product of a joint venture between Hitachi and ABB Power Grids. Hitachi Energy is a global power technology leader serving utility, industry, and infrastructure customers across the entire value chain and emerging areas like sustainable mobility, smart cities, energy storage, and data centers. So the breadth and depth of the experience that Hitachi Energy has amassed really allows it to provide the high standard of service across the full value chain to plan, build, and operate and maintain power infrastructure projects as safely, reliably, and efficiently as possible. Hitachi Energy is very much a global company with a meaningful presence in over 90 countries and an employee base of 36,000, which makes it ready to serve its customers' needs through its 4 business units: grid automation, grid integration, high voltage products, and transformers. Next, we have Elof Hansson, which is a global business facilitator and a business developer, facilitating strong connections and good deals around the globe. With a strong focus on sustainable projects, Elof Hansson supports EPC contractors and international banks with supply chain management to facilitate competitive Swedish export credit financing. And I believe my Team Sweden colleagues mentioned them in the presentation earlier. It has experience in water treatment and distribution, healthcare, railway, and agriculture projects. And so Elof Hansson is definitely a good partner, the perfect partner to consider when developing your EPC projects. Next, we have Dynapac, which is a leading supplier of high-tech soil and asphalt rollers and pavers and compact equipment. And its offerings are really complemented by parts and servicing and even financial solutions, which ensures that it's able to serve its customers in the best way possible. With production facilities in Europe, South America, and Asia, Dynapac is well represented to serve and support customers worldwide through a regional sales and service office network, as well as an extensive and professional distribution network. A part of the Fiat Group, Dynapac aims to be your partner on the road ahead, ensuring the safe and sustainable productivity of its customers. Next, we have another company in energy, Hexicon, which is a Swedish project development company enabling both early-stage project development. And with its own design and engineering team, it has also developed a patented design for floating multi-turbine platforms, which enables offshore wind energy production. And you see it in the slide here, Twin Wind, its patented floating foundation, enables the platform to really align with the direction of the wind and maximize the energy yield that it gets from the wind. At present, it has projects installed in developed in the United Kingdom, South Korea, Norway, and Sweden. Hexicon's first demo unit will be installed in Norway in 2023, with 2 units for electricity production then coming in the United Kingdom. Hexicon works with other global leaders and companies like Shell, Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, and Bechtel. And to round out our EPC Alliance, we have NKT. Since 1891, NKT has innovated power cable technology, building the infrastructure for the first light bulbs to the megawatts created by renewable energy today. NKT is a leader in the design, manufacture, and installation of low, medium, and high voltage power cable solutions. So NKT's turnkey cable solutions provide the backbone for the modern world, bringing power to interconnections, hydroelectric and nuclear power plants, and many others. It also provides cable services to minimize network downtime, as well as technology consulting services to ensure that its customers get the tailored support they need to solve their technical challenges. And that is the EPC Alliance by Sweden. And I'd like to remind you that company representatives are present here today. And I know that some of you might have meetings booked with them already, but we encourage you to take these last couple of hours to book meetings with them if you have any more questions about their products or offerings. You will also continue to see more about the EPC Alliance companies in short videos through the summit. As for the B2B companies, we'll be taking you through a quick refresher on how to book these meetings next. And the video break will be followed by a panel session on the future of construction in Southeast Asia.
Hello, I'm going to show you how to book B2B meetings on Digital Construction Summit platform. First, log in, then go to my availability section and activate your availability. This means that you're available for B2B meetings on October 20th. If you don't do that, you cannot request a meeting from participants and participants cannot request a meeting from you. To request a meeting from someone, go to Participants section and choose Matchmaking on the left panel to see participants who are available for B2B meetings. Scroll down the page, and if you see someone you would like to have a meeting with, click Request Meeting. You can add a message to your request. That person is going to receive your request immediately and get back to you with a meeting time. You can follow this process on Meeting section. Once they accepted the meeting request and chose a time, you will see that here. Here you can see meeting requests sent to you and accept them as well. When it is the meeting time, you can directly connect from Meetings page. You do not have to go anywhere else. That is it. We hope you have a pleasant experience.
For more than 200 years, electricity has been transforming lives, societies, and businesses around the world. We have been at the forefront of this journey. Our people, our expertise, our technologies have increased access to electricity from major cities to remote places. And now, in the 21st century, the energy landscape continues to evolve, driven by climate targets and changing lifestyles. A massive shift to wind and solar and the electrification of transportation, industries, and buildings. Electricity will be the backbone of the entire energy system. We are evolving the system to be more flexible and resilient, safe and secure, carbon neutral. And we are evolving too. Hitachi Energy.
I am delighted to welcome you to this panel discussion on the future of construction in the infrastructure sector in Southeast Asia. Known as a dynamic and fast-growing market, Southeast Asia has been investing in infrastructure long before the pandemic to increase the attractiveness of the region as a destination for investments. More recently, governments around the region have announced ambitious plans to boost construction and other infrastructure projects, emphasizing the role that these activities will play in the region's economic recovery and overall development. This panel session will discuss the prospects of construction in Southeast Asia, featuring perspectives from different industry players, from financing institutions to solution providers. The panelists will highlight opportunities in public and private construction, enabling factors and challenges, and how financing gaps can be addressed. The panel will pick up how the Swedish ecosystem, through innovative, high-quality technology and financing solutions, can support the construction projects in the region. Join me now for, I'm sure, a very interesting discussion with 4 insightful panelists and the moderator, Emil Akander. Emil, over to you.
Thank you, Harald. So my name is Emil Akander. I'm the Trade Commissioner at Business Sweden here in Singapore and looking after Southeast Asia. So I think as Harald alluded to now, we are in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of a very challenging region when it comes to the pandemic. And I think if it's one sector that has really been hit, business-wise, not people-wise, it's the construction and infrastructure sector. It really used to spur growth in this part of the world. And even if growth is forecasted this year by 7-8% or something, it's obviously from a different base. But hopefully this would be the first year of recovery and hopefully stronger recovery to come in the day after tomorrow. I think it will depend on 2 things. One being the public investments. What will government and stakeholders do in order to keep up the momentum? And also how will previously delayed infrastructure plans be conducted? That's the 2 things probably. And in the short term, we have all those uncertainties in the region and the country that we operate in. And it comes very much to the global trade node where we sit, supply chain constraints, rising material costs, short-term disruptions. But I think that even if the short-term recovery is probably not here, at least not for the Swedish industry that I represent, it's the recovery tomorrow that we're after. So if we are not here today, we will not be here tomorrow, or more evenly importance of the day after tomorrow. I think also there's other way to be optimistic, even if it's been challenging and tough times for this sector now during the past 2 years. It's also hopefully been an opportunity for stakeholders to look over efficiency, optimization, processes, and hopefully also some technologies in terms of digitalization and even new business models to transform the industry. So hopefully with all this, we are here to recover, and I think we're very happy to join the EPC Construction Summit today here from Singapore to showcase a bit on what does Sweden have to offer, both in terms of solution, technologies, sustainable solutions, but also in terms of funding and financing options with local partners, and not the least also partnering with the local key stakeholders in terms of the engineering companies, the construction companies, but also all the consultants around the system. So before we jump into the panel, I actually like you all to meet this excellent panel. I'll start and give the word to you, Jerome, to introduce yourself a bit and what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emil. So I'm Jerome Schneider, and I'm working for Standard Chartered Bank in the export, structural and export finance team. I've been working in that team for more than 11 years now. And I used to be based in London, covering Africa, some countries in Africa, and been relocated in Singapore 2.5 years ago, covering the region. So maybe country by country, my main focus would be on Indonesia, Vietnam, India. There's also Bangladesh, Philippines, Malaysia, amongst others. But these are the key countries where we operate.
Thanks a lot. Great to have a local financing partner, I think, here for our solution providers, but also our customers in the local markets. Yeah.
Thank you, Emil. My name is Ihab El Disui. I work for Dynapac, one of the global leaders of compaction and paving equipment manufacturers. I have been around in the construction industry for the last probably 20 years across the world, different places. So I have learned a lot from this industry over the last couple of decades. We have our headquarters in Singapore for the Asia Pacific region, and yeah, it's interesting to see the challenges we are facing these days, and of course the future that lies in this region. Thank you.
Thanks Emil for having us here today. I'm Nirupa. I'm the country manager for Hitachi Energy in Singapore. So Hitachi Energy, we're a newly formed organization, previously from ABB. You might know us as the power grids business. We are a pioneering technology leader in energy systems that help make them flexible, secure, and scalable. I've been working in this region for the last 4 years and previously in Australia for about 10 years. It's a very exciting time for our business as we're right in the midst of the energy transition, which also provides an opportunities for our EPC customers to pivot their businesses into the renewable space. So we'll talk a little bit more about that today. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Kasper.
Thank you, Emil. Thank you for having me here. My name is Kasper Baum. I'm Director Aviation and part of the leadership of the aviation sector for Surbana Jurong. Surbana Jurong is 100% government, Singapore government-owned urban planning, engineering, and consultancy service. We are actually the biggest infrastructure consultancy service in Asia Pacific and growing. I'm heavily engaged in the Singapore Changi East expansion program, which includes the third runway, obviously, at the Eastern Airfield, as well as Terminal 5, which will world's biggest terminal building ever built, and will be the new home for Singapore Airlines, which is also part of our group. I'm also involved in other major aviation projects in Asia Pacific, globally as well. I have done 30 years of aviation and more, and actually had roles at the owner side, the contractor side. Most of my time I was at actually airport investors and on the owner side, which is helpful in the consultancy business, obviously, to understand client requirements, and also been heavily engaged in airport transaction and funding options, which I think is very valuable for the discussion today.
Great, thanks, Kasper. So, I mean, looking a little bit on the outlook, as I said from the beginning, it's obviously everyone hoping that this will be the first year of some recovery. Next year, hopefully, more recovery. But then, if we're looking a little bit and kind of strategizing on what will happen in terms of outlooks, both for this year and the outlook in the years to come. So if I start with you, Kasper, I mean, being in aviation, being in infrastructure, you must have seen a really huge impact beyond comprehension. Do you see any differences this year and in the year to come? Are there any changes in Surbana Jurong's portfolio and your focus now?
Yes, and I must say, in aviation, I've gone through a lot of crises. We know 9/11 has heavily impacted aviation. Then SARS has impacted, where everything came to a still stand. The same last year happened. Last year was devastating because nobody knew what's actually going to happen, no vaccination yet. And this year the perception is optimism. Actually, what's happening this year, and I think this is most probably good lead-in for the opportunities coming up in the next couple of years, is that the recovery seems to be faster than expected because vaccination, other elements have also been accelerated. And what we also see is that that pre-COVID, certain elements, in particular that sector, were not sustainable anymore. Can give a few examples, like lack of crews. There were not enough actually crews to fly all these airplanes, infrastructure not available, etc., etc. So this is now something that we see that the business model, and in many industry, not just aviation, is currently being reconsidered. So the means of leisure travel, business travel, where do we work? The whole office-based industry is actually performing better than expected, which has an impact to travel then, obviously. So it seems like what we are doing today is the exception, and the common thing is technology, virtual working, etc., etc. So the interesting thing is that the industry is trying to recover in a stronger way. And that's currently the indicator that the majority of industries are actually coming back stronger than expected and then predicted last year.
It's great to hear. So not even stronger, but also resilient in that sense, and long-term growth and hopefully infrastructure investments to continue.
Exactly, yes. And what we also see, which is eventually important for Jerome and the conversation with Jerome, is that we see that ownership models are changing. So obviously the airlines have been hit heavily last year. Some of the airports could survive somehow because they had contingencies with logistics or landside real estate and retail, like Changi Jewel, for example. But the airlines, when they don't fly, they don't get anything. And now they are looking into innovative funding models, not only in Singapore, generally aviation globally. And what is interesting is that we see stakeholders wanting to become shareholders in the infrastructure, which is pretty new. So that could potentially, we could see home carriers and airlines wanting to invest actually in the airport itself as well.
Interesting. Thanks. Nirupa, from your field when it comes to energy infrastructure, specifically then, do you see certain sectors, new emerging opportunities coming in terms of concrete opportunities in Southeast Asia?
Yes, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Firstly, if there is a flip side to the whole COVID-19 pandemic, it is the resolve from the governments to further invest in the energy infrastructure and transition to a low carbon future. And we're at the center of all of that, and we see a lot of activities in Southeast Asia. Singapore International Energy Week last week, and some of the announcements we heard there with Singapore's plans to import renewable power, low carbon electricity from neighboring countries is again an example of how government spending will help stimulate demand and then helps bring the sector back into this region. So over the last 1.5, 2 years of the pandemic, COVID-19 had lots of devastating impacts, but the government spending still remained robust in most markets, not all, particularly in the public infrastructure segment. Some of the other trends we saw were in the space of digitalization, so that has driven further demand for data centers. So we see a lot of data center operators coming to Southeast Asia, so that's also supporting our business in this region. And the other third piece of public infrastructure spending is in transport. So with high rates of urbanization in Southeast Asia and also issues with congestion, et cetera, in certain markets, there's continued spending in transport as well. Short-term impacts of COVID-19 and material price surges have definitely have dented, the businesses of organizations like ours, but still, overall, the dialogue is there, the intent is there, the spending is there in these main infrastructure segments.
Great. So hopefully more sustainability angles then to see in the future investments of infrastructure. And I believe that's a real strength now for Sweden to partner with when it comes to Southeast Asia.
Correct. Yeah, definitely. So, speaking a little bit about sustainability, we ourselves took a strong stand earlier this year by declaring our 2030 ambitions to become carbon neutral in our own operations, also committed to targets in our own supply chain and operations. And these are not, just pledges or ambitions that we're declaring. This is something we mean, and it's also something that's demanded by the markets and our customers.
The big topic is obviously around financing and funding of all those great opportunities that there are now. Jerome, how do you see the regulatory environment when it comes to kind of enabling those investments? Are there enough initiatives to stimulate the investments to drive concrete opportunities in Southeast Asia?
Well, I haven't necessarily seen some, regulatory environment effects on boosting investment in infrastructure or any other sectors to that extent, because I think the main reason really is the liquidity is here, right? It's ample and diverse. Still within the pandemic situation, we've seen that a lot of banks have been funding projects and the competition is here, right? So, in fact, in some countries, I think on the contrary, some countries we've found some couple of layers of bureaucracy that could be potentially tedious or cumbersome for institutions that may not have the local knowledge or the local presence to face these issues. And that's the reason that at STB we highly rely on our network and the global presence as well to be there, and our local staff will be also helping and supporting the clients or the EPC or the suppliers to go through this administrative process and to deliver this, to make it as seamlessly as possible, really.
Great. Now, local presence is probably the key to lock up some of those opportunities and finding that attractive funding package partnership then with the local players. Great to hear that you can navigate that and be the local partners also for the industry and the clients.
Exactly, and especially for these sort of financing where we're looking at long-term financing, having a local presence makes the difference, because if we're talking 15 years loan life, right? Anything can happen. You can have waiver, you can have issues at the borrower side, and then we will be on the ground next to the borrower and discussing, trying to solve the issue rather than stepping back, staying in Europe or any other international bank without this local presence. It's a huge plus in the value add, we believe, at Standard Chartered Bank.
Great. And eHub, I mean, the other big topics when it comes to seeing the opportunities and the future investments is obviously around competition. And I mean, being in the industry for such a long time, but also navigating this part of Southeast Asia. How do you see the competition from Northeast Asia when it comes to their very strong presence, and how do you navigate that actually?
Yeah, I think if you look at this region, it's unique in the fact that you almost find all players in Southeast Asia. Either it is an international supplier or a local manufacturer from the region or around, and that puts a lot of pressure on I would say international companies to be competitive. And if I go back probably a decade ago, it was more of a price-driven market, so it was not much of a technology. But what we see today, it is maturing a little bit, and we can see already a slight start on the transformation to digitalization, which also I would say have filtered a little bit all the players and brought the market into, I would say, a starting point to go into the next future. We still see a big gap between technologies used in Asia in general, in the majority of the big markets, compared to what we see in Europe or in the US. But I would say it is slowly coming. We see initial start of this. We have already used some of these new technologies in key projects in the region, like racetracks, runways, and so it is coming, but in a bit of a slower pace compared to before. Of course, also the evolution in technology will speed up the rate of transformation in this region. I think, okay, on how we have tried to overcome the strong influence of the local or the regional manufacturers, we also started to use our manufacturing footprint in the region. So we brought our knowledge into the Asian countries with manufacturing units, so that we started also to produce machines that fits the customer needs in this region, and also, I would say, stay a little bit step ahead on technologies that we offer.
No, I think you're right. I mean, traditionally, this was the sales and marketing market area for the Swedish industry, and maybe after sales as well, obviously. But hopefully tomorrow then, not only manufacturing, but also co-innovate and innovate with the customers, and using digitalization then as a competitive advantage to kind of capture some of those opportunities together with the local organizations.
Exactly, and if you look at the available technologies today, there is a huge potential to improve in performance and efficiency and cost of projects. So the perception of technology cost more is actually started to phase out in this region, because people start to see that utilizing these new technologies and digital transformation will definitely add into better performance on their overall project, and that is coming. It's happening now, and we have As I said, we have used this in few projects, which proves that this will be the future.
It's great to hear this opportunistic kind of light of dynamism for Swedish industry and companies. When it comes to sustainability, and I think we were there in the beginning of the panel, but it's the year of COP26, midst of large conferences. Just here in Singapore recently, we heard the announcement of the Green Plan. And I think this competitive advantage of Sweden and Europe has long been sustainability, but we see that moving out more and more in this part of the world. Do you, Kasper, in your field of activities and business, see those green plans also affecting the construction and infrastructure industry, and in what way?
So generally, what we see at the moment is that the reconsideration of the business model and let's say the design and planning model for infrastructure, not only aviation but generally for infrastructure, goes hand in hand with the commitment for sustainability. So net zero, emission reduction, etc. Also in the construction industry is affecting significantly the project and reconsidering the project, which delays in a way on the one hand, but is opening up opportunities for everybody to revisit the business model for the industry. And the interesting thing is what we see is that suddenly not only the landlord or the owner of the project is the one who takes the initiative, but we see that the entire stakeholder community is actively engaged. So as in an airport, usually that it will be, the logistics, the ground handler, the civil aviation authorities, the airlines who get engaged. And they also get engaged into an early construction or contractor engagement to optimize, and that affects immediately sustainability. So for example, the master planning at a very early stage is revisited together with the contractor or the specialists and system providers. I can actually give you an example from our Changi engagement with a Swedish company, Cavotec. Cavotec being very active in Singapore and Asia Pacific with harbor, port equipment, and the supply chain for special airport systems. We considered very early to engage different companies, including Cavotec, to get actually market feedback, and which has informed the planning process and the understanding of viability and sustainability in the future, because we are very uncertain, in particular in the long-term projects, how technologies change, how regulation changes over the next decades, and obviously these mega projects affect the next couple of decades, and we don't want to build something today which is outdated in 5 years from now. The sustainability aspect is obviously leading in these considerations, but also the business model. And what we see is that sustainability, the business benefits case around energy savings, reduction of carbon emissions. And not only, I'm not talking about offsetting carbons, but actually reducing to zero in the timeline is extremely important at the moment and has opened up a lot of opportunities. So we see there are actually opportunities around the topic. What we also see is that countries like Sweden, who have advanced in the thinking process of sustainable business in infrastructure, can help a lot, in particular in countries which have issues with productivity, efficiency, with availability of skills and research outcomes. Sweden has progressed, it's even progressed in Europe, where we see that there is an opportunity for Swedish experience to come into many countries and at a very early stage engage with all the stakeholders and owners of the process of major infrastructure development to inform the planning process and subsequently the way of how projects are constructed, systems are supplied, etc., etc.
It's great, Susan. I think in the banking and finance industry, it's been famous a long time for very sustainable, green, environmental friendly funding and financing solutions. But do you see this coming in construction and infrastructure as well?
Yes, I do. And I think I'll just give a quick snapshot also on the banking industry and the environmental aspect on this, because in this banking industry, we think that it is more and more, they are more and more embracing and developing these sort of sustainable finance structures. And in the regions, I mean, as many countries in the regions, they are still currently very reliant on fossil fuel for electricity or economic growth. I think there's the key challenge would be to enable a transition that will help the emerging countries to meet first their targets, so climate targets, without depriving them of obviously the opportunity to grow and to prosper. So I won't speak for my competitors, but again, as SCB also, we've announced quite recently, ambitious new targets to reach this net zero carbon emission for all of our fundings by 2050, with interims, new targets also by 2030, I believe, for the carbon incentive sectors such as oil and gas, power, or metal and minings. So I think in the countries where we operate, we do see this as both a great opportunity for the players to actually adopt this new low carbon technology, but also facing like the toughest transition financing and climate challenges. Right? But that being said, we're seeing a growing appetite in the financial markets for clean loans and structures, and the lenders and also investors are increasingly careful on these green loans and type of sustainable structure. And I do believe that they will be playing like a priming role going forward, because these sort of assets will benefit from preferable terms as well, right? And to benefit from this, I think the construction sector, as well as the project owner or borrower, they will need also to comply to certain criteria, including obviously the international standards, but also the standards set by the ECAs or the financial institutions.
Great to hear that. Ihab, on your customer side, when it comes to EPCs, then do you see this kind of similar drive that they are using sustainability when it comes to integrating it in the day-to-day operations or in your customer opportunities?
I think this is still not really realized here in this region. It's a bit, as I mentioned earlier, there is a little bit of a gap on this direction, but we see that it's coming more and more in this region, and I would say, in my own opinion, it needs a bit more of government support and legislations that to drive this faster. I think if I look at Dynapac, we have taken environment as a key topic in our company, and we have recently launched our Z-Era program, and our Z-Era program is a carbon-free and emission-free product that we already launched the first machines. They are operating in Sweden, and it is our, let's say, platform for a clean future in our products. And so this is happening, and it's already available today, maybe not in a big scale, but we need to drive this more into the region. And again, I think that the switch will not come directly from contractors. I think it needs a little bit of a push from the governments to implement these regulations faster in the region, and that will help, of course, to cope with the, I would say, a clean future for all of us.
It's great to hear that you are taking a charge and also pushing that as a company and industry player as well. Yeah, I definitely need the support from the government in the local context. And Nirupa, I mean, how do you see sustainability as a competitive advantage? It's obviously a very broad topic, and while you engage with customers and stakeholders and opportunities, what's the real competitive advantage of sustainability?
I mean, that's definitely a key topic in every conversation that we're having with our end customers, is what we're doing in terms of sustainability in our own operations and business, but more importantly, how we're adapting our portfolio to help deliver more sustainable solutions to them. So pioneering technology, that is our main focus there. So we've launched an array of products. An example is SF6 is a very efficient insulation gas used in electrical switchgear. but yet extremely high in a carbon footprint perspective. 1 kilo of SF6 is 25,000 tons of carbon or something like that. So how do we devise and launch new products that are SF6 free? So we're working very intensively with, in the planning stage with our customers, consultants to help educate the market on solutions such as these that can then be adopted into projects and infrastructure. So back to what Casper was saying, that early engagement of educating the market, whether it's our end users or consultants or contractors, is really key. And in terms of competitive advantage, that will come once the end users are fully aware of what the impact is of using high carbon products or technologies versus solutions like what I just mentioned. Finally, in terms of adopting these new solutions, the EPCs will go where the market is, really. The EPCs will follow the market, and pivot their businesses accordingly.
Great, thanks. Looking a bit on the funding and financing perspective of things, not only the opportunities and competitive advantages and sustainability. But Casper, you engage a lot throughout the region within aviation and aviation infrastructure projects and so on. How do you see those mega projects, those large projects being financed today throughout the region?
So we see a major change to the way how they were financed in the past. So my background is from privatization projects where we would, in my case, the first private airport project was Athens International Airport. There would be a public-private partnership, and then the private investor would come in, would be an operator investor, that means an airport operator, and would fund a project and then operate for 25-year or 35 years concessions. That model is changing for various reasons. One part of it is that very often government is stepping back. So we now see fully privatized projects. As an example, we engage in a 100% private airport development project in Romania, a new capital airport. We're looking into similar models in Asia Pacific as well. One good example is Bulacan in Manila, which is an airport currently under development where we also engaged by San Miguel Corporation in the Philippines. Very interesting, 100% private airport. The regulatory framework for that is not yet in place. So we see that still, not only in Asia Pacific, but generally globally, there is a lot of work to be done to engage with governments and key stakeholders of key organizations in the different countries to inform the process and to make it actually more attractive or eventually even more fundable than it is at the moment. I'll give you an example. Actually yesterday in a conversation with an operator in Indonesia, we were told that the Indonesian regulation doesn't allow an international airport to be 100% private. There's actually no reason for that. So we see that at the moment there is a big change in how projects can be funded. And I think the key is that projects are broken down into digestible units that can be funded with the content knowledge of the funding entities. To give you an example, an airport is not just an airport. An airport is actually, in the meantime, a metropolitan infrastructure with Aerocity, with logistics, cargo, the airline maintenance, the core airport, which is terminal, which is in the majority retail and commercial. And what we see is the initiatives of different types of funding. Best example is Jewel here in Singapore, which is actually a combination of Changi Airport Group and CapitaLand. So you have then two different types of knowledge coming in, and then also funding and managing and operating it. And that is what we see now in Asia Pacific being more and more and becoming actually applied in different countries at different types of projects.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like also to echo what Casper is saying around the Bulacan airport in the Philippines, because we are Standard Chartered, we are the financial advisors, a co-financial advisor together with another bank and also a lender. So for confidentiality reasons, I cannot share too much, but it's true that these very large projects are being stripped down to different phases, and the financing, there would be a mix of different type of financing, fully private, can be corporate finance type with product finance type on the different phases. So we see this more and more, and hopefully, we can get through this transaction very quickly. But very interesting also to see this mix between the structures on the financing when it comes to large projects.
Great innovation indeed to enable good solutions. I mean, Jerome, when we are here, how do you look upon the competitiveness and characteristics of the Swedish export credit financing system? Have you had experience working with them out here or in other regions, and how do you see their use and competitive advantage?
Okay, so I'll start first questions. So I think when a transaction comes to us, the very first things that we do is we look at the procurement strategy and the sourcing breakdown, right? So this is the first thing and the starting point of discussion when we try to identify ECA eligibility. Once this is done, then the critical part of it would be to discuss with the project owner, the borrower, the sponsor, whoever it is, to understand if these commercial contract arrangements are already secured, negotiated, or still flexible in a way, right? And this is for us to advise also the client what would be the most optimal structure, commercial contract structure to attract the best ECA in the markets that will provide the most favorable terms. EKN combined with SEK, I club them together, are, for me, one of the best options that provide a wide range of products and in comparison with other ACAs, the best terms, right? So I think once we narrow down to this discussion and we see that there are some flexibility around this, then we can size and promote this maximizing the ECA components. Now, you asked also about what are the benefits on the ECA product. I think for the project owner, clearly the long tenor we're looking at under the OECD arrangement for project finance type up to construction plus 18 years repayment. For corporate finance type, meaning balance sheet lending, we're looking at construction plus 10 years as a maximum allowed under the OECD arrangement. So this is long terms that will be of interest for the borrower. In conjunction with the long tenors, obviously the compressed pricing, because the lenders will benefit from a cover from the ECA being in that case, the Swedish government rating, right? So we do have as a lender relief on the capital allocation, right? So on the cover piece, we will not allocate capital, meaning that we will be allowed to lower the pricing substantially if you compare with commercial lending. And typically the ECA cover goes from 95% cover to 100% cover, meaning that the capital allocation is close to zero. And therefore, we are allowed, depending obviously on the cost of funding, to shrink as much as possible. So the combination of long terms and cheap funding makes it extremely attractive for any borrower, right? But there's also an incentive, I think, for the supplier, the EPC contractor, or the vendor that will work on the project that will be financed by ECA, is the negative carry, the cash flow matching. In other words, there is this mechanism, direct disbursement mechanism, for every invoice done or milestone done, then send us the invoice and we will pay directly as a direct disbursement mechanism. The funds will flow from the lender's account directly to the supplier's account without flowing through the borrower's account, right? So that will reduce significantly the payment terms. So that's also an incentive, I think, that could be of benefits for the supplier. And now, in terms of our experience, so as a bank, we are very proud of our long-standing relationship with all of the ECAs, DFI, so developmental financial institution, multilateral agency as well around the globe. And I think we're one of the handful international banks who can connect a client to 25 ECA or multilateral agencies, again, that can be in China, Korea, Japan, Europe, the US, and beyond. And as far as I'm concerned, so as I said, I've been working for the bank for a bit, and I came to work with most of these ECAs, and including EKN, which is very close to my heart. We've closed a few transactions in the telecom industry and the transport sector as well, when I was at the time covering some countries in Africa. So I think the SCB, Standard Chartered Bank, ECA business, we can't think of this business without having an EKN part of it, because it's such a critical partner to us for many reasons. Obviously, there's first the high credit rating of the Swedish government. Clearly, that makes a huge difference. The various products that EKN and SEKs are offering. So the funding participation from SEK, the fixed rate term loan, and sometimes the participation also in the advanced payment facility, so the commercial facility. So all of this, plus the flexibility as well, the client-oriented approach on all of the transaction makes the lenders and the client's life very easy. So it's always been a huge pleasure working with EKN and SEK. And we truly hope that we can do more in the region with them.
Thanks a lot, Jerome. And I think you're really to the point now that it's a very unique offering in terms of the partnership, but also the willingness to take the risk and to offer a great solution towards the customers of the Swedish industry. Looking a bit finally on doing business in this part of the region, and Europa, EHAB, US, kind of Swedish industry players. How is it, EHAB, to do business on the ground here? And do you see you have public stakeholders, you have private stakeholders, you have international EPCs, local EPCs, Asian EPCs? How is this?
Yeah, I think the base is more or less the same, but what we see here different is probably international, let's say, non-government projects or non-government contractors or non-state contractor. They are more flexible to new ideas. The problem with our infrastructure, especially roads, these follow norms that has been set, and some of these norms have been years and years in the books and never been updated with the latest technologies, and that makes it a little bit sometimes old-fashioned the way we build roads in this region. And if you have a private contractor or a private EPC or an international EPC, it's more easy to look at I would say more efficient solutions and how to perform the same job in a better way, I would say. And if you look at the technologies we have today, I think it has evolved hugely during the last decade, and I think the rate of evolution we see on technologies and connectivity between machines, it's adding a lot of values to customers or to our contractors in the regions. And what I see today is, there is a lot of untapped potential that we still can do more. We can do better here if regulations are updated in some of the norms of building roads, different in general infrastructure. And that will help, of course, to grow in this region faster. I have to say, I mentioned about our Z-Era program, this energy or zero emission platform we have. I mean, this is not a new technology. We have actually launched the first electric roller 2010, but at that time, the technology available at that time was not really helping us to move faster into this program. Today, if you look at the evolution of the last 10 years on battery solutions and connectivity, I think it adds a lot of opportunities into the market. And again, I think, in my opinion, there is always a better way to do things, and we need to regularly update our norms, especially in the infrastructure sector.
Interesting. Nirupa, I mean, how do you see the Swedish industry? How can it be more competitive out there and use their competitive advantages? And I mean, do you have specific projects and initiatives that you think you can do more of in order to gain more business?
I'll answer this a little bit differently. So a trend that we're seeing a lot across Southeast Asia is the way our relationships with the EPCs is evolving. So because of the general market trends around investments in renewables, which is required at a pace that we've not seen before, the next 10 years of action to help the world reach net zero targets, means everybody has to ramp up their efforts. And so in that ramping up efforts, the relationships with the EPCs is no longer about, behaving as a vendor and a customer, where they can pick and choose from 20 different suppliers, have, OEMs from Asia, OEMs from Europe, compete against each other. It's really about tying up and partnering up early, which is a trend we're seeing especially on the mega projects, particularly in renewables and data centers, these industries that are going faster. Is this a partnership approach with the EPCs. So I think there our differentiator is obviously on the technology piece. We've been continuing to invest and coming out with world first to the market. So that's one piece. Second is our local footprint. And I think, Ihab mentioned about having manufacturing in this region and competency in this region is a critical play for us. We're not just seen as a European OEM, but really quite local. Just in Singapore, for example, I think we've been here since 1969. That's a lot longer than many other companies from many other parts of the world. So I think being more local than global. So so finally to wrap it up, with EPCs, it's more about changing to a business model where we're more partners rather than a supplier-customer relationship.
Right. And the final word to you, Casper. What do you think Sweden can do more of and better of, and what can we do to grasp those opportunities and partner with yourself and others to work in a better way?
I can actually give a kind of observation that I have made working with Swedish companies and being myself having relations with Sweden for more than 40 years is Swedish companies should sell prouder what Sweden has achieved. And in particular with regard to sustainability. So Sweden was one, in particular, Scandinavia in general, but in particular Sweden and Norway have been the very early countries in the European context to have very highly regulated sustainable requirements. So if you talk to companies like Swedavia, who are operating the airports in Stockholm, community engagement, district cooling, water harvesting, recycling of building materials, etc., it's a whole chain. That is by itself a consultancy service to EPCs in the region, because we see that here we are at a stage in some of the countries where we were like 10, 15 years ago in Europe, but actually 25 years ago in Sweden. So that's something where I believe there is a lot of experience and technology that can be shared. And I've seen that in the context also in Changi here in Singapore. Maybe Singapore is not really a good example because Singapore is very advanced in certain approaches to sustainability. But if I would, for example, go for a country like Indonesia, which is a country very similar with challenges like Sweden, it's a huge waterfront, rising sea levels, islands, connectivity, different types of transportation. And then obviously Sweden, very similar to some of the countries here, is a huge country with small population. That means there is productivity issues. So Sweden has actually overcome these issues, developed large industries through smart technologies, smart processes, etc., etc. So my recommendation to Swedish organizations has been and is share more and market and brand more of the good things you have, because there is a lot actually that can generate partnerships with local or Asian-based organizations and EPCs and governments. And one thing which was mentioned earlier about engaging with the different stakeholders here, I believe, and the difference between public and private projects. What I have seen in the last 2 years is that the pressure is on everybody, on obviously private corporations to remain profitable, and grow the portfolio in the region, but governments to find the right regulatory environment to support this. And what I see is that all those organizations, from suppliers, consultants, other service providers, funding and financing, if they can actually have a different approach, a more engaged local approach to governments as well, this is a huge game changer. And last, maybe to close, is what I've also seen is understanding business. That means money talks. And if you really manage to come into a business benefit explanation, even to governments, to explain that you can do it in a different way to become profitable, to invest less but have a higher return. And by early engagement, for example, like we mentioned earlier, with suppliers, with service providers, you can most probably make a big change and transformation in the industry to become profitable, to become more sustainable, etc., etc. And that means you need to be able and send the right people to be able to engage with those stakeholders. And that is not only to Swedish companies, it's actually to everybody doing business here. Bring the right people to engage with the right stakeholders on the right level.
Thanks a lot, Casper, for those very valuable concluding remarks. So just to wrap up some things, I think today probably we see short-term challenges when it comes to the region that we operate in Southeast Asia. Still disruptions due to the pandemic, restrictions primarily, material supplies, cost kind of complicated, and also now the energy crisis. But hopefully tomorrow, the EPCs would see an uptake and public investments, private sector investments, new business models will spur opportunities in this very dynamic part of the world, because I'm sure the day after tomorrow we still stands in the most opportunistic region of all in the world. You have a young population, you have a growing population, strong consumption, you have general diversification trends going on around the world, and we are in the epicenter of those trends, whether it's geopolitical, whether it's trade related, and whether it's infrastructure investment related. And we also have some of the most, hopefully, interesting future export-oriented countries in the world in Southeast Asia. Not only strong markets in consumption as Indonesia, but strong exporters as Thailand, Malaysia, and in the future, and already happening, Vietnam, among others. So I think the message is clear now. We as Swedish industry needs to be local, we need to be present, we need to be strategically present with funding, financing, new business model, using sustainability, innovation, digitalization as a competitive advantage, and really show to the local partners who we are and how we can co-create for a better tomorrow for this part of the world. So Caspar, Nirupa, Ihab, Jerome, thanks a lot for your valuable insights, sharings, and tips and tricks to Swedish industry, to local partners. It's really been great to hear your valuable perspective of doing business on the ground and looking at the future opportunities in Southeast Asia in terms of infrastructure and construction. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you to our panelists for such great and nuanced insights into the dynamics and the prospects of the construction industry in Southeast Asia. Now we'll go to Indonesia for a conversation between Eric Odor, Trade Commissioner to Indonesia, and Jufli Irawan, the Deputy Head of the Project Management Office for PT Waskita Karya.
So thank you, Tina. We have now heard several interesting perspectives on the construction industry and where it is heading in Southeast Asia. We heard how the pandemic has forced stakeholders to reevaluate the business model and how we see new forms of collaborations and investments being formed. Also, the panel had some very interesting perspectives on how the industry is developing towards more sustainable solutions. We heard about the challenges in financing projects and the recent developments in the competitive landscape. Joining us now to comment on this, we have Jufli Irawan from PT Waskita Karya in Indonesia. Waskita Karya is one of the leading state-owned EPCs in Indonesia, and it plays a major role in developing national infrastructure as well as abroad. So Jufli, could you briefly introduce yourself and your company and share your views on the outlook for construction and the infrastructure in Southeast Asia in the coming years?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for having us. My name is Jufri Rawan. I'm from PT Waskita Karya, Indonesia. I'm currently at the working as a deputy head of project management office for financial restructuring. Because currently we are undergoing a new transformations which also cover the financial restructuring. So my major role is to coordinate the transformations, particularly on the financial restructuring side. We have some materials to show to you, so we can go through what is currently Waskita up to and how our view on the upcoming infrastructure in Indonesia and beyond. Thank you. Probably we can go to the next slide, please. Yes, as previously explained by you, Eric, Waskita is one of the leading infrastructure company in Indonesia. We are owned by government. We are a public listed company. We were listed in 2016. Currently, we are owned by public around 33% of our shares. In brief, we have three business lines as a group. Waskita itself initially started as a constructions company. We were initially playing a significant role in development of water infrastructures. However, we have developed ourselves to go to a wider range of infrastructure developments. Also, we also cover the building development, toll roads, and also EPCs. To support that, we also have a business line in terms of investments. As a group, we invest a lot in toll road developments in Indonesia through one of our subsidiaries. We also have investments in real estates through one of our subsidiaries. And also we have other non-toll road infrastructures through one of our subsidiary that is focusing currently on renewable energies, and also we also have planned to expand our business through the heavy equipment services. And the other business line is the manufacturing sectors, which supports our main role as a constructions company. So we have our own precast concrete manufacturing to support our building and toll road constructions segments. And lastly, we also have manufacturing for steel to support our building and also electricity related projects. Those are the brief explanations on what is Waskita as a group currently doing. Next slide, please. So we understand that currently we are still in the early stage of recovery from the pandemic. However, we see that the huge opportunity is there for Waskita and other infrastructure company in Indonesia. We have identified the opportunities within Indonesia itself. As you can see here, there are huge plan from Indonesian governments for midterm plans. It has been stated by the governments. There are projects related to Trans-Sumatra toll roads, and also of course the new capital city development in Borneo or Kalimantan, and also Trans-Papua toll road. Also, government have plans in water infrastructure projects, and also power plants, and of course transportations like railroads and other transportations. So these are the areas that Waskita see as opportunity for us to tap in the near futures, and we together with other infrastructure related state-owned companies in Indonesia, we are ready to play a role in this development. Yeah, and talking about our experiences in taking infrastructure projects outside of Indonesia. Yeah, luckily we have experience in helping the constructions in other countries, particularly in Middle East. These are some notable projects that Waskita has completed in last years, mostly in Middle East. We participated in the building constructions of Burj View in Dubai, and the last one, the major one, is the constructions in the Holy Mosque in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Apart from this, we also have completed some projects in Southeast Asia, like in Timor-Leste a few years back. And currently, we are also in discussions with one country in Africa to help them in developing road projects over there. So we, of course, we see that the opportunity to support the constructions and EPC projects outside of Indonesia is a huge opportunity for us to tap, and Waskita is looking forward to tap into that market as well. These are some observations that we have, and we want to share with participants here that some challenges that we faced earlier with regards to the projects outside of Indonesia. And I think in this forum we can we had good insights from the panel discussions earlier, that how the Sweden solutions can help overcome these challenges. But in short, we can share with you, these are some ideas about challenges in terms of operations and financials that we faced. First, with regard to the operations, of course, we have to be familiar with about the regulations of the particular country that we operate. This has been a major concerns with Waskita. We have to be ready. We have to engage with the right consultants for legal aspects, and as well as tax related and also financial related matters, to help us to familiarize with the specific requirements and regulations in the country that we operate. And the other thing that we have to focus also in terms of operations is the relationship with the third party in terms of supplies and also workforce. I mean, because it will affect our cost and also the timelines of our project completions. These are the things that we really have to focus on: the supply chains and also the relationship with the local suppliers and workforce. Now, and in terms of financials, of course, when we are doing overseas projects, we will need to secure a strong support in terms of working capitals in foreign currencies, and also the other supporting facilities such as guarantees from the commercial banks. Sometimes these facilities quite be challenging because we have to prepare longer time for this unlike facilities for local projects in Indonesia. And also we have to also focus on the compliance with the specific country's tax law. This has to be, managed very carefully. We normally engage with a consultant also for this one. And also, last but not least, is also the concerns about the foreign currency exposure. We really need to engage with commercial banks that have a strong hedging and forex services, so that we can minimize the exposure for that forex. Yes, that's Eric. Our view on Indonesian infrastructure going forward, and also I share with you the challenges that we face, that we hopefully can get some ideas and solutions from these discussions.
Thank you, Jufli. I think it's very interesting to hear how you can actually confirm what the panel was talking about, how government spending on infrastructure is continuing and how plans are still moving forward in the midst of the pandemic. Now, you showed some examples of the infrastructure developments that you have identified in Indonesia, and as we've heard, the picture is very similar in across the whole region. Also very interesting to hear your perspectives here on the financing issues. The panel also touched upon the regulatory landscape and the issues with that. One thing that the panel also discussed was the Swedish export credit system. Maybe you can share, what is your experience of working with export credit financing and the Swedish export credit system in particular? How would you say that it can complement other funding and financing options?
Well, this is a very interesting topics to discuss today. Yes, because Waskita, as we pledge to grow our business outside of Indonesia, so we will definitely need international institutions that support us for that areas. In previous years, we have engaged with export financing institutions from Indonesia. Indonesian government also have that institutions for our projects, overseas projects, and currently also we are in discussions with that institutions to support our plan in Africa that I mentioned earlier. However, we are looking forward to work with other international institutions, especially from Sweden Solutions, because we perceive that not only is Sweden financial institutions have a strong financial capabilities, but as one of the leading countries in sustainability development, so we hope that by engaging with Sweden institutions, we can also have the additional advantages from EPC and building related, that is Sweden companies has experience and leading in terms of sustainability and green features, I would say.
Thank you, very good. And I think here today we have the representatives from the Swedish export credit system, as well as many of the companies that have ways of working and technologies that's very much connected to green development. So I think we can have many interesting discussions to follow. Speaking of green, we heard earlier the panel's perspective on sustainability. I think it was interesting to hear the different perspectives, where on the one hand, there is a significantly increased focus now on sustainability in the industry, with ambitious targets and pledges being set from governments across the region. While on the other hand, as was pointed out then in the panel, more government support and regulations will be needed to drive a significant change in sustainability. One person in the panel pointed out that EPCs will go where the market is on sustainability. Maybe you can share, do you have any experiences in incorporating sustainability into construction and infrastructure projects? And what is your view on this?
Yes, of course. Waskita as an infrastructure company, we embrace the new perspective and paradigm of the industry on how we should perform our operations, and also how to engage with our project owners and suppliers, particularly in this sustainability and green features of our projects. And in fact, currently we are in the process of applying a technology to our steel inventory management in order for us to manage steel waste more efficiently. This is one of the initiatives that we do within our company. This technology is called Waskita Integrated Steel Systems, and we are looking forward to implement this to all of our infrastructure projects. Those are the initiatives that is currently undergoing in Waskita. And from our subsidiaries, we also have some experience and initiatives there. At our toll road projects, we are planning to participate in the assessments related to the green toll road, which will be assessed by Green Infrastructure and Facilities Indonesia. It is planned in 2002. These assessments will focus on the applications of green constructions in toll roads, constructions, and its operations. And another one is in one of our subsidiary for the real estate related projects. Our subsidiary, which is Waskita Karya Realty, it has been awarded with Green Ship new buildings in 2017 by Green Building Council Indonesia and World Green Building Councils. So those are our experiences and initiatives related to the sustainability, where we're looking forward to have more expertise and also experience sharing from Sweden Solutions to work together with us.
Thank you. Sustainability is very close to the hearts of us Swedes, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue on how to incorporate it in everything we do in infrastructure development going forward. There's plenty more to discuss. Unfortunately, our time is up. Thank you so much, Jofri, for taking the time to join us and sharing your perspectives from Waskita Karya. We need to close this session. Looking forward to continue the dialogue in other forums today and going forward.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, and we are looking forward to the next B2B discussions with Sweden Solutions. Thank you.
Over to you, Tina.
Thank you for that, Eric and Jufli. Definitely very valuable to have the insights from earlier grounded in the experiences of a local EPC. Now we will again have a short video break, and then after this, the screen will be turned over to our Team Sweden colleagues from Stockholm. Hans Olof, Shell, and Per will be joining us live to answer your questions about the EPC program and export financing solutions.
Hello, I'm going to show you how to book B2B meetings on Digital Construction Summit platform. First, log in, then go to my availability section and activate your availability. This means that you're available for B2B meetings on October 20th. If you don't do that, you cannot request a meeting from participants and participants cannot request a meeting from you. To request a meeting from someone, go to Participants section and choose Matchmaking on the left panel to see participants who are available for B2B meetings. Scroll down the page, and if you see someone you would like to have a meeting with, click Request Meeting. You can add a message to your request. That person is going to receive your request immediately and get back to you with a meeting time. You can follow this process on Meeting section. Once they accepted the meeting request and chose a time, you will see that here. Here you can see meeting requests sent to you and accept them as well. When it is the meeting time, you can directly connect from Meetings page. You do not have to go anywhere else. That is it. We hope you have a pleasant experience.
Energy is essential to our everyday life. It heats our buildings, lights our streets, and powers our companies. But as the world is growing, so does our need for cleaner and more efficient energy. And to achieve that, we need better and more innovative energy products. And that has been our mission for more than 125 years. We make cables and provide solutions to the world's power grid that have been engineered to last and perform in any environment and any situation, every time, every day. Across the many countries where we operate and thousands of projects in which we participate, this is who we are and how we deliver lasting value for our customers. No matter the project, no matter the country, one thing stays the same: our dedication to providing true value to our customers with the services and products we provide. It is our customers' needs and our ability to provide them with safe and reliable products that keeps us innovative and keeps driving us forward. We take pride in being an essential part of the world's power grid and are passionate about designing sustainable energy solutions for tomorrow. We go wherever we are needed. High sea, the mountains, or the big city, we are there, making sure that every cable, every connection, every termination works perfectly. We are NKT, and our passion brings power to life.
Introducing our next pit stop, Formula One Vietnam Grand Prix.
Với dây chuyền đồng bộ hiện đại như thế này thì chúng tôi tin chắc là việc thi công đạt được chất lượng và tiến độ đề ra. Thứ hai nữa là về chất lượng thì khẳng định luôn là sẽ đảm bảo các yêu cầu kỹ thuật của dự án.
Máy đi lắp ráp vận hành cũng dễ dàng sử dụng cho người vận hành. So với các máy đời thấp kia thì chỉ có đơn điểm thôi, mỗi bên một cái sensor, còn cái này là đa điểm, là mỗi bên là 3 cái. làm cái độ chính xác rất cao ạ.
Your partner on the road ahead. Dynapack.
71% of our planet's surface is covered with water. The ocean has so much yet to offer. Using what we've learned from the past, we can now produce truly sustainable energy. At Hexagon, sustainability is at the core of all our decisions. We developed the Twin Wind system, a floating solution that enables wind farms to be positioned further offshore and in deeper waters than conventional designs, where they have less visual and environmental impact and better wind conditions. The Twin Wind system is designed to allow the platforms to align with the direction of the wind, maximizing efficiency. The twin turbine design allows the deployment of more turbines per sea area, increasing the energy yield per acreage by 45%. Hexagon, bringing sustainable floating wind farms to the world.
So we are back in Stockholm here, and we are ready to answer some questions here. It was really insightful to listen to the panel and also our colleagues in Indonesia about the possibility in the region. We shooting into questions directly before we waiting for any other issues. I think you can shoot in questions as we speak here. We will pick it up and ask the panel here about it. The first question we got here is that it's from Nicelle from Asia Development Bank. Do projects proposed for export credit financing need to meet certain sustainability criteria? So Per, you talked about it earlier. So.
Yes, and absolutely yes. Sustainability is very important in the projects that we do finance. SEK is Equator Bank, and we are the whole Swedish export credit system is governed by the OECD Common Approaches from framework. They both point to the IFC performance standards, which means that indeed it is environmental, it is human rights, it's labor rights, and all kind of anti-corruption. And then also the Swedish export credit system is, we say that we have to align it with the 1.5 Paris Agreement goal.
Yep.
And that obviously put a lot of effort on the fossil and CO2 emissions. So what we have said is that we do not obviously finance coal. We don't even finance coal power generation. We don't finance transport of coal. And if from 2022, in the end of 2022, we don't finance anything that is gas and oil generation of or exploration and
fossil free.
Yeah, basically fossil free.
And I mean, we have discussed it. Coal, you can't do.
No.
Yes.
And yes, no.
we will be able to do power generation in gas, for example, but it will be not in rich countries. It will be in poorer countries or in countries that are destroyed from war, for example, to build up where there are no other alternatives.
I think we're probably coming back to those questions. I just continue here on the list with questions here. How much of a total project can be financed through the export credit system? Michelle, maybe you want to elaborate on that.
No, I mean, we follow the OECD guidelines. So, I mean, if you have 30% of Swedish interest in a transaction, then we can finance the full project, and that includes then the down payment of currently 15%, but in certain countries, as of last week, also for maybe down to 5%. So that's something that we're currently looking into.
This temporary thing, this is something very new here. That is due to COVID, if I understand right.
Exactly, it's a COVID measure, and OECD has in a restricted time offered the possibility to reduce the down payment criteria to 5% instead of 15%.
Also, we have a question around, have you had any experience in multi-tranche financing partnership with other IFIs, like international finance institutions? I don't know who.
I think so I can start, and then you can chip in. No, so we participated in a number of transactions where we've done parallel financing. So that to finance the full project, we've used parallel financing. But we have not had IFIs inside the specific tranches that we have been covered. That said, it's something that we maybe want to look into, and Per, maybe you want to elaborate a bit on.
Yes, and so far in the EPC type of transactions, we have mostly been financing with the government guarantees. But if we look at Southeast Asian region, it seems to be a lot of projects which are private investments, and that might mean that we have to really look into that type of structure to see how we can cooperate and finance together with others. And we have done that outside the EPC contract. So we have been involved, for example, in the Dogger Bank wind farm project out in the North Atlantic Sea, which is a mega project where we have SEK has participated in the project finance structure together with maybe 10-15 banks. So yes, we are used to the technique.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate anything more?
No, it's I think Per answered perfectly.
Okay. I mean, we got a message here from Vietnam, and what is the Prime Minister has signed the decision 1831 on prolonging of the national list of projects calling for foreign investment in the 2021 to 2025 period, with a total of 157 projects around $100 billion. It's urban metro lines, railways, seaport, and industrial zones. Does Swedish Export Agency want to back these projects? What will be the key criteria for fund granting?
Do you want to start?
I can start, absolutely. It will very much depend on what type of project it is and how the investments will look like. So we will look upon each project on an individual basis. So we can't say in general exactly how we would like to do. And it will depend on the better the credit risk is, the larger amount we can do, basically. Do you want to add anything?
No, exactly, and that's also the way we operate in other countries. So it's definitely depending the credit risk of the project. Yeah, and if you have a Ministry of Finance guarantee, obviously we will cover 100%. If it's a more project risk structure, it's up to 95, or depending on the credit risk. Yeah.
And I think what we can say is that we also have collaboration there through Business Sweden with a number of projects we're following in the energy sector, airport sector, etc. And we even had the Crown Princess there visiting a couple of years ago. So we have quite a good relationship there. So that is also helping us stepping into projects there.
Yeah, and we are obviously, like we said, we are very open for cooperation with other financial institutions, including all the multi-development banks, for example, in these type of projects.
I had one question here from Access Communication. It's a Swedish company. They asked about that. This feels like something for the bigger companies. It's more like for the Hitachi Energy, the Volvo, the Sandvik, and they, as a small company, has difficulty to get in here. And they ask if it's space for them to go in directly, not maybe through a trading house. And my answer will be yes, for sure. It's you can go in directly in this transaction. It's a smaller tranche here, but you can be part of the total packages here. And especially when we see projects that have this kind of requirement for example, in your case here for camera solutions. But it's sort of then you're becoming a smaller part of a bigger part. We need to also align other suppliers, so we're having the supplier base, so to say, that actually can service the credit financing. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, but and I think it's important to point out it's not only for the big. We need the big because we have that's the base of the offer that we already have a big chunk of the content. But that's the whole idea with the project, that we gather around that and add on more smaller exporters, Swedish exporters. And the more exporters we get in there, the larger amount we can provide with attractive financing.
I think we have discussed this quite a lot also, that in the transaction we need to have an anchor supplier from Sweden. That is sort of so much easier. And then we can add on there. But then that is the way to get the Swedish content together. Also, what we have got the questions around. I think, Kjell, you may mention earlier that we have been closing a lot of new deals. Can you elaborate a little bit on the sectors that you see particularly that we are having a lot of interest?
No, I think it's actually circles quite well around the free topics we discussed before. We see a number of requests in railway infrastructure, and that's also following the climate changes and the current investments in the world. So it's definitely into transport. So railways and BRT systems, absolutely. We've seen an increased interest in hospitals, and some of it has been planned before COVID, and some is planned during the pandemic to shift the investments to invest more in hospitals. And so on. So we definitely see an increased demand in that. And the third sector is the renewable sector that is growing rapidly in interest. So I definitely foresee that we will close a number of transactions in all these three sectors in the time to come. But it centers quite well around what we discussed before.
Yeah, and I mean, just a follow-up question to that. I mean, you showed the pipeline here. Due to COVID, have you seen a slowdown in the number of transactions that you're getting in and also can move forward with?
So I think from an EKN perspective, we actually had a bit more transactions during the pandemic, and that was on top of the specific COVID activities that we did. So we've seen a continuous interest in using the export credit system. And I think that's also comes back to the white paper that ICC drafted a couple of weeks ago. It follows the same principles.
Okay. We have also a question here. I mean, we talked about project financing. You're financing a project, so you normally require a governmental guarantee. But if you start talking about private risks, that you have an SPV, or for example, in the energy sector, you have a wind power plant here, can you finance that kind of structures, this kind of SPV project? And you're having your risk of it will look differently. I mean, Maybe Per,
I mean, you mentioned one, so continue.
Yeah, I mentioned one that we already did participate in. So yes, we can do that, no doubt. But depending on how the project is structured, the credit, we have to assess the credit risk, and that will basically decide how much part of that we will be able to take. But we are open for that type of structures, and those type of structures normally are exposed to, for example, the price of electricity, for example. So you have an exposure there which you have to take into consideration, and then you have off-take agreements maybe with governments and so on, and that will strengthen the credit exposure, and then we can do more and so on. So it's a credit issue, but yes, we would like to participate.
But it's only on the debt side, not on the equity side.
Equity is not our role to provide, but obviously if there is a need for equity investments, which there most likely is, then we have to do our homework and see if we can come up with also equity investors that could cooperate with us. But that's nothing where we are right now, and this event I think is an excellent opportunity to also have bilateral meetings with EPCs in order to understand how the market looks like, because then we might do our homework and come back with an even better offer than we have today.
Another question is that, I mean, it's a lot of discussion around fixed or floating CIR we are very proud of. Can you elaborate a little bit around the fixed versus the floating interest?
Absolutely. We are open for financing at floating rates, and that will be, the spread level of that will obviously be what type of risk that we have. If we have EKN cover, it will be relatively, everything else equal, low spread. But we are also happy to provide fixed financing. And if we do provide fixed financing, we provide it in the form of the CIR, which is an OECD agreement. So that sets a floor, and we try our utmost to be able to offer that floor. And we can do absolutely US dollars and euro, but we also do other currencies. But I think that those two currencies are probably the ones that are interest.
When it comes to different countries, I mean, Southeast Asia is a quite big region. Are you open? It's probably for you, Michelle. Are you open for all countries?
No, I mean, we follow also here the OECD guidelines, and certain countries we are closed for due to sustainable lending principles and so on, and those we follow and monitor continuously. And so I would say if the country is not on the sustainable lending principles list, then we're open for cover. And also in many of these countries, we might only be closed for sovereign risk, but we are open for private risk and so on. So it's really depending country by country.
And you can have a look at your homepage.
Absolutely, yes.
Because there you have a listing and your rating.
Yes, absolutely.
So that is a good tip here. We had some more questions. Do you have any limits for size sectors? So how big can you do upper and lower?
No, I think we don't work with limits per se as such. Definitely not in sectors. So I think the problem is either on the credit risk side that we evaluate, or I mean, is there Swedish deliveries that can actually come up to that amount? But I think the transactions that we've done, I mean, we do millions of US dollars in renewables and telecom and other infrastructure sectors. So it's so limit is not the problem. It's usually either the credit risk or enough Swedish suppliers.
And there I can add that if we have a project where there are obviously Swedish content, but there is a lot of content from other countries as well, then we can cooperate with other ECAs, and that means that we can do a bigger amount because maybe EKN can front that transaction and then reinsure with other ECAs. And for us, that would be a perfect solution because we could provide the funding for the whole transaction in such case.
Okay, that is very good. See, we have some last questions here. I mean, the last one, maybe. Why should a EPC choose a Swedish financing? What is the really value proposition from Sweden, if you summarize that?
I mean, for me, it first and foremost is the Swedish companies that delivers the values to the projects. I mean, that is the number one criteria. Secondly, is the AAA rated export credit system that the international banks finds very attractive for them to really come in to and invest in this project. And then, I mean, the third, as we said before, it's the backing that we have from the government, the embassies, and so on for building these infrastructure projects.
Okay. And also, I think that in some cases, the fixed component, if there is a government involved, if, for example, you want to have control over the cash flow of the loan, and there, I think that from time to time, the fixed rate that we offer is very attractive.
Yeah. You mentioned during your presentation also that Sweden can provide also using the embassies to help the EPCs locally for projects in the local market together with the business of Sweden offices. So that is also an value add. So you get the governmental support also.
No doubt.
All right. I think we have time for one last question here, and before we round off here, that is around Swedish content here. We talked about Swedish interest, Swedish content. Maybe you can elaborate as a last point here about that.
So if I start, so we look at Swedish interest, and Swedish interest really means that it doesn't have to be produced in Sweden. It's the value created in Sweden, and that could be R&D centers and so on. So that's why we can cover multinationals that have R&D activities in Sweden, and we can cover Swedish companies that have production overseas as well. So we look at the Swedish interest, and then it has to be 30% of the commercial contract for our mandate to be valid to enter into the transaction. So that's how we look at it.
Do you have anything to add there?
No.
Okay. Final, and but I think there we ended the Q&A sessions. And of course, I mean, feel free to book meetings with us in the afternoon session or in the middle of the day in Sweden. And so we can elaborate a little bit more about if you have any questions and wonder about anything here. And then over to Tina, you do the last word here. We would like to thank you very much for listening, and we're looking forward to the discussion going forward.
Thank you again, Hans-Olof, Kjell, and Per, for those important clarifications and for making yourselves available later. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our formal program. And on behalf of Team Sweden, I'd like to thank our speakers for sharing their time with us, and to everyone who dialed in. We really hope that you come away from this well-equipped to handle the challenges and capitalize on the opportunities ahead. Just a quick reminder again, for those of you who signed up for B2B meetings, please make sure that you are logged in to the EPC Alliance platform, and we hope that you enjoy your afternoon or your morning of networking. Thank you to everyone, and have a great day.